Hey, everybody. So, adversity happens. We can either egg it up, potato it up, or coffee it up. I'll tell you what I mean by that. So, a young woman was at school, was doing a test, didn't do really great on her test, came home. She was upset, kind of complaining at her dad about how hard it was to study this particular subject or do the test, that kind of thing, which is fair. So the dad went over to the stove, grabbed some potatoes, grabbed some eggs, grabbed some coffee beans, and he boiled all of them. And then brought the daughter into the kitchen, sat her down, and he put down this plate of eggs, boiled eggs, put down this plate of boiled potatoes, put down this glass of coffee. And then he asked her a question. He goes, what do these three things have in common? And she didn't know. She was looking at him. I don't know. They were all, I don't know, Dad. He goes, well, they've all been in water. She's like, oh, okay. They've all been in water. In fact, they've all been in boiling water. And in the case of the potatoes became soft. In the case of the eggs, they became hard. And in the case of the coffee, the water was affected. Okay, so she's looking at that and he goes, honey, adversity can make you harder. Adversity can make you softer. Or because of what you do and you have adversity, you can affect the water. In other words, you can be the one to have a greater effect on life and everybody in your sphere of influence than the water had on you. So, a few things we can learn from this little analogy is, well, first of all, also I want to point out, unless you live in some kind of very protected life experience, which doesn't happen all that often, water is going to boil. There are going to be hard things. Some people have lived in lives where the water boiled a lot hotter, one could say, but in most people's lives, the water boils. Now, is it okay for adversity, for you to take adversity in such a way that it makes you harder? Well, maybe. There may be situations where your life has been pretty simple and you don't have a very sophisticated way of seeing the world or having empathy for others, that kind of thing. And something happens that you wouldn't choose to happen, and it's very difficult or whatever, and you gain now a resiliency. You gain a perspective. You gain something that helps you mature up, become stronger. Harder, in that way of speaking, it would be a positive thing. A negative way of looking at adversity making you hard is just becoming cynical and angry all the time and easily offended and upset at life. And many people take that route. Adversity happens, and that's the direction they go with it. Now, what about softer? Maybe adversity can make one more sensitive, make one more humble, make one more understanding. That's great. Well, adversity, the other way of looking at softness is can make someone take on the personality trait of being a victim all the time. Maybe there was true, like there was truly something horrible and bad that happened, and so one was victimized, but then they keep going and become, the phrase I use sometimes is become a practitioner of victimhoodness forever. So that's another way. Adversity could just, you can choose to have this negative softness thing, this negative hardness thing happen, or a positive hardness thing, or a positive softness thing happen. So the egg and the potato are actually, those are fine ways to deal with being boiled. It's great. Now let's look at the coffee. There are people that have proven beyond any doubt that adversity of extraordinary levels was perpetrated upon them, and they came out of that affecting in a positive way all of known existence around them. Viktor Frankl is an example of that. He was in a Nazi concentration camp, and he came out of that horrible situation, wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. If you haven't read it, go read it. You'll know exactly what I mean. And forever changed millions of people. I read Man's Search for Meaning when I was a senior in high school. And in one day, in one sitting during Christmas vacation of my senior year, got up, read it, and just read it in one sitting throughout the day. Couldn't stop crying. It forever shifted my perspective of life. So Viktor Frankl affected the water. Some of us may feel like, oh man, I had this hard experience, hard time, and I totally blew it. I failed in this way and that way, and I've been bitter and I've been upset, and I don't know if I can ever pull out of it. Well, what's really nice is that whether or not your hardship was yesterday or 10 years ago or 40 years ago, your and mine ability to exercise our agency now exists. And in 5 minutes, it'll exist again. And in 5 years, it'll exist again. It is never too late to potato it up, egg it up, or coffee it up. Never too late. And if we let our adversities make us hard in negative ways, and we let adversity make us soft in negative ways, that's okay, because we can always go to affecting the water whenever we choose to. Even if we're feeling soft, even if we're feeling angry, we can go back to some aspect of ourselves that would allow us to affect the water positively today. And then that affects our potato-ness and our egginess along the way in good ways. So adversity, you could say, sucks. You could also say it's a blessing. If a kiddo, same age as the girl from my original little story here, living in a third world country with a war-torn third world country with neighbors being blown up, and then that was just sort of a Tuesday, and as far as she knows, somebody else is going to be killed next week. Could be her, who knows? A test at school is going to have a very different stress level for her. And if the day came where all of that went away, all of the horrible situation that she's in went away, and it was just about going to school and studying or whatever and passing a test, she probably could do it without a whole lot of stress compared to these other stresses. it is said sometimes that if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. Adversity can make you stronger. I don't agree with that exact slant of looking at it. It's not what happens to you that makes you stronger. It's what you do with it. It's how you exercise your agency upon this thing happening, while this thing is happening, after this thing has happened, with to do this to this thing that is happening or has happened. It's what you do. And that process that you go through while you're doing that thing that makes you stronger. And if you have had the difficult experience and you did what needed to be done to make you stronger, you're stronger than somebody who did not go through that adversity. And now you're somebody that is confident enough to help somebody else. You're somebody who is sensitive enough to listen to somebody else and understand where they're coming from and perhaps have something useful to say to them. At any point, we can let adversity be our friend. Years ago, when I was a kid, nobody knew that chronic wetting the bed or chronic inability to control one's ability to go to the bathroom in the correct and appropriate times, that may have had anything to do with neglect or molestation, that kind of thing. But I wet the bed every single night. For lack of a better phrase, I pooed my pants during school. I had a neglectful childhood, and a lot more happened that I don't want to go into necessarily in this video. But anyway, a lot more happened. And it was adverse. And then later in my life, I had an opportunity in my 20s to purposely experience very hard physical things. Learning how to make fire just with sticks, for example. Hiking multiple tens of miles in a day. Living without any food for a week other than what you could find on the land. On purpose, living with austerity and under really difficult circumstances. And what I realized is when I chose adversity, not the sort of adversity that I went through as a kid, but you know what I mean, when I chose adversity and overcome it, lived through it, learned how to live with it, learned how to raise myself up to a level that could handle it, that affected how I reflected upon and was able to sort of after the fact make it through some of my childhood experiences. Adversity can be a very useful and a very good thing, and there's all sorts of adversity, and there's inexplicably horrible things that happen. And many, many thousands of people have known how to become stronger individuals and more sensitive individuals, humbler individuals, and more confident individuals, and affect the water around them. So, be the egg, be the potato, be the coffee, in all of the beautiful ways that those three things can be. And you will always be able to affect the water. Thanks.